Hi, this is Drew Loker, and we are returning back for part 2 of Spreadsheet Assignment 1. Activity 1 will conclude here in the next few steps, and then we will begin Activity 2. So we left off from part 1 just as we were entering in the assignments and some grades. Now at this particular point of the grade period, you will only have a couple of grades. This formula that we created will calculate 25 grades, and when you highlight the formula, you see that it will actually calculate all the way down to B31. And the same is also true of the major grades. If we click on that formula, we see it'll calculate from C7 through C31. All right, so a couple other things that we want to do. We can center justify columns B and C by highlighting the entire column. And in instruction step 7, it says to change the fill color, but I actually covered that already in part 1 of the video. And remember, the cell formulas that are colored in yellow, those do not change, so don't overtype those. And that is actually what I'm going to check for your grade to make sure that you got this done. Now, as you're going through this particular grade period, you'll want to enter in your assignments and also enter your grades as well as your major grades. So as you can see, if you make a 90 on the greeting card and your typing speed is a 90, it'll continue to average. And let's say you make 100 on the spreadsheet, you can see that it'll continue to average and calculate your class average with 40% weighting on the minor grades and 60% weighting on the major grades. All right, so I'd like to show you how to transfer this over to your next assignment. So this is step 9, where it says duplicate all of the cells. By the way, I didn't mention this in the last part of the video. Don't forget to pull off your tab so that you can alternate tab back and forth between your instructions and your actual worksheet. And that makes it a little easier than having to use your mouse and go up to the top and go to the different tabs. Of course, we also have learned in class that you can do a control tab, and that'll take you to the next tab in Chrome, or control shift tab, and that'll take you backward in the tabs. All right, so we want to go ahead and duplicate this for the next class. But before we do that, let's go ahead and title this particular section Tech Apps. Now you can write the title of the class in any cell in particular. I'm not going to be particular where you write that. It's just somewhere where you want to see it. You may also want to freeze row 1 by clicking on the little gray bar right above row 1 and pull that gray bar down. And that way, if we scroll down, we can still see that we are in the grade calculator, and that's always a nice attribute. All right, so before we go any further, what we want to do is go ahead and copy all of A3 through D, wherever our cells are finished through. So really all we need is the top of this. So actually I'm just going to copy just A3 through D6. So I've highlighted it, and then I'm going to do a Control C, and I'm going to go over to F3 and paste. All right, and you'll notice that we've got some formula errors, and that's okay. That's because we don't have any grades. Now, the neat thing about formulas in spreadsheets, both Google Sheets and Microsoft Excel, is that the formula will transpose when we copy and paste. So if we click on this cell now in G3 and we go up here and look at the formula bar, we see that the formula is now calculating G6 and H6 respectively. So from this particular section to this section, it has transposed those formulas for us automatically. So if we go ahead and label this our history class, and let's say we have a history assignment with a, let's say, chapter review, and it's a minor grade, and you made a 90 on it, we start to see some of our grades populate. And let's say we have a major chapter test, chapter 10 test, and let's say you made a 80 and 85 on it, and now you see that the rest of the grades will go ahead and copy over. Now you can make column E a little smaller, And you can copy and paste this to one cell column over. Make G or J a little bit smaller there. And this one we can call math. And we can come over here and start doing the same sorts of things for each class. And once we run out of room, we can scroll over. All right, so it's a fun way to track your grades without having to go into the online grading, and it's also a good way to check to make sure that the grades are getting recorded correctly on the computer system. And one of the reasons why you may want to do this is you should always do the very best you can, but what do you need to get to the next grade level? So let's say, for example, let's go back to the Tech Apps class. Let's say you had a 75 on the typing speed, and let's say you only made a 90 on this assignment. Okay, so theoretically, you have an 87.5 in a class, and you've got another big assignment coming up, and you need to know what grade you need to try to bring your grade up to an A. And so one of the reasons why I want you to be able to do this, because you cannot do this with the online Teams grading. You can just hope that you do the best you can, or you can come up with a plan to make sure that you do pull out the A in the class that you want. Now, as an 8th grader, you may not be particularly concerned about your grade point average right now. But trust me, it does make a difference, and especially as you go into high school, you will be concerned about each grade point average. So let's say you theorize you're going to make 100. Look at that. If you make 100 on spreadsheet 2 or whatever activity it is, you would actually bring your grade up to a 90. And you can see it goes to a 90.25. And you can change the rounding of any particular cell by clicking on it and changing your decimal places. You can either reduce the number of decimals or increase the number of decimals. In this case, let's just reduce it down so it rounds to the correct number there. Okay, so we're ready to move on into activity 2. And in this particular exercise, what we're going to do is create a new worksheet. We're going to click the plus sign, and that's going to give us a new sheet. And that is in the lower left corner. We're going to rename this sheet Semester Averages Activity 2. Then we're going to type in exactly what we see on the instruction sheet. Now, I happen to have the instructions open on an iPad over here to my side. And for you in class, you can either resize your windows so that you can see them both at the same time, or you can also toggle back and forth. So do whatever's easiest. I'm going to pause the video and go enter in the text into each of the cells. All right, so I've typed in all of the basic text that we need for this particular grade calculator that is going to calculate semester averages. On this particular worksheet, what we're going to be looking at in row 6, 7, and 8, and so on, are actual classes, grade periods 1, grade period 2, the average of those 2 grade periods, the midterm exam, and the semester 1 average. Then we're going to look at grade period 3, grade period 4, the average, and then we're going to look at the final for that semester, which would also be just a semester exam if you have a single class that meets for only one semester, like the Tech Apps class. And then we're going to take the semester 2 average and combine it with the semester 1 average for some classes. Those two averages will average together to give you your composite, your final score. Now, this is a very useful activity to try to calculate where you stand with your averages and what exactly you need, possibly to pass a class or to get up to the next letter grade. All right, so I'm going to pause the video and format a few things. Basically, what I'm going to do is change some cells to green and yellow so that we know where formulas go and where course levels go, as well as course grades for the different grade periods. Okay, so while I had the video paused, I just made a few changes to column width, bolded a few things, but for the most part, what I wanted to go ahead and show was let's go ahead and make cells C or columns C, D, C6 through C9 through D6 and D9. We're going to make those green for grades. And the reason why is this would be for our different classes like history. Except I can't type here. All right, and we'll do our tech apps. Of course, if you're in tech apps right now, you had a different class in the first semester, so maybe you had ag the first semester. And we'll just go ahead and leave that last one blank and let you fill that in. All right, and so average is going to be a formula, so we're going to make that yellow. And then I'm going to show you just a little shortcut. You can either highlight F6 to F9 and go ahead and click the green again, or you can use the Format Painter, highlight what you want and click it, and then just click and drag down and it makes it green. Or you can also copy and paste from one cell to the other cell. All right, semester 1 average is yellow, so we're going to make that yellow here. And actually, at this point, we can just go ahead and copy and paste because the second semester looks just like the first semester with the exception of the year, which is also a calculated cell. So I'm going to highlight those 3 cells, copy, and then go over there to O and paste. So however you get to that step, that's basically what we want the spreadsheet to look like. And I guess there's one other thing I've done on this worksheet, and that is to put everything inside of a grid so that we can see that a little easier of what's going to be in what in each cell. All right, so the next step that we need to do is to pull in our formulas. I've also made this red, and the reason why is because this. So if you happen to be watching this video and you're actually at another school that has 6 grade periods, 3 in the fall and 3 in the spring, you would have to add a 3rd grade period and change the formulas to reflect the fact that you need to average. So we're going to go back to the instructions and take a look at what we need to do next. We'll go ahead and maximize this so we can see this a little bit better. All right, so our step that we're going to do in cell E6 is to write a formula to average grade period 1, which is cell C6, and grade period 2, which is D6, using the average function with the range you want in parentheses. In this case, it should be C6 to D6. Now, I'm actually telling you what the formula needs to be, but I want you to write the formula. So your formula should look like this: equal sign, average, open parentheses, and then you're going to put the first cell reference, that's a C6, and then you're going to put the colon, and then you're going to put the D6. Now, for simplicity purposes, you can go ahead and just copy and paste this right here. So we're going to right click and copy it, but that does not make a working formula. So we're going to go put that in the correct cell now. And we're going to put this in E6. We're going to double click and paste it. But the problem is we still have to define the range. What is cell 1 and what is cell 2? So going back to look at the instructions, we will see that in cell 1, we need the first grade period, and cell 2 is going to be the 2nd grade period. Now, the colon means that it's a range. It'll actually average any number of cells. In this case, we're only averaging 2. So we're going to highlight cell 1, and we can either type in or just click the cell, except it didn't work, so let's try that again. And we're actually just going to try typing it in. Microsoft Excel is a little bit better about that. Let's type in C6, and then we're going to highlight cell 2 and type in D6. And you'll notice that there is no score at this particular point because we need to put our average. Maybe you had a 75, and grade period 2, you had an 85. and your average going into your midterm exam was an 80.